Well, hello everyone. My name is Maureen Mongrain. I'm your host and welcome. Your breakthrough starts today, faith healing to reset your mind, your body, and your soul. And I am so excited to introduce my speaker today, Doug Wubbens, and he is a life and leadership coach. He's as a nurse, he supports his patients through end of life care, and he's also had his own struggles with burnout, anxiety, and chronic pain. He also does workshops on communication and self-awareness. So there's a lot to Doug, and I'm really excited for you all to meet him. Thank you so much for being here, Doug, and I'm honored that you get to be on my show.
Well, thanks so much for the invitation. I'm super honored to be here as well, Maureen.
Yeah, okay. Well, I want to ask you, how did you get into your coaching, life coaching, leadership, which is phenomenal, and maybe intertwine it with being a nurse because that's such a great, noble profession. So, tell me more.
Yeah, well, it's been a long and winding road. The short answer to that is I received some coaching from Martha Beck, not directly, vicariously through listening to her interviews, reading her books, and that really became a lifeline for me at a time at a really low point in my life where like you mentioned, I've had chronic back pain for quite a while, and at that moment in my life, it had worsened quite a bit, had
Oh,
gotten quite debilitating, was struggling with depression, anxiety, and I was getting burned out at work. All of this was happening at once. It was like a perfect storm. And that's when I found her, and her coaching helped. Something cracked open in me through that process, and enough that it gave me a little hope, and it gave me enough energy to keep digging and exploring. And eventually I found my way into her Wayfinder coach training. So now I get to help others climb out of that misery that I had spent some time in.
okay. Well, I'm sure you are. I know you're an amazing coach and a nurse as well. I could see both of that. So that's great. Well, how did you make the first connection between pain and emotion? We definitely know that so much is emotion.
Yeah. Well, my earliest memory of this came, it was a few years after losing my dad, who died in his 50s suddenly of a brain aneurysm. And so that was pretty traumatic time. And a few years after that, my back pain was getting pretty bad. And I found some help with a massage therapist, and I was face down on her massage table. And at one point, she put her hand on my low back, on the small of my back, and just paused there. And she said, "It feels like there's a lot of grief in here." And that's all she said, and that's all she did. And the floodgates just opened, and surprising me. And I felt a lot better after that massage session. And I don't think it was because of the wonderful massaging of my muscles that created that. It was the emotional release. So that was in my 20s. And that's when I had a first inkling like, okay, there's something connected here between this back pain and my emotions. And like a lot of people in our culture, and especially men, uh, we get cut off from our emotions. They're not celebrated, they're not encouraged. We don't learn about them. So this was an initial invitation for me to start paying a little bit more attention to that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm sure with that pivotal point for you, I'm sure that you have learned a lot about the emotions and probably too being a nurse, all the people that you've helped and seen. And I'm sure that comes out there as well. So, how did you learn to experience your own emotions?
Yeah. Well, like I mentioned, it was a long process. I'm still learning.
Yeah.
Um, Still learning a lot, actually. But I think the first way that I really started to become more aware of it was noticing all the ways that I would try to avoid them, either
Oh,
through drinking alcohol or smoking or gaming or staying up late watching shows until I
uh,
was exhausted and just fell asleep, or any other number of ways. Overeating, using food. So I had experience using all kinds of things that over time I started to just pay more attention to that. And it was a way to distract me from experiencing whatever I was feeling. Um, and when I took those, as I slowly took those distractions away and stopped using them, the feelings were right there. And so I couldn't help but experience them at that point. And I had a number of important spiritual teachers that helped as well. Pema Chodron was a big one. One of her books is called The Wisdom of No Escape, which kind of hints at where she goes, which is allowing yourself not to escape from whatever's happening in this moment, which often includes some emotion, and learning to rest in that in a gentle way. Um, but journaling helped, therapy helped, my co-counseling community helped. I had close friendships that helped. I had a lot of uh, supports along the way. And that's one of the main things I want to get out and encourage folks is, not to try to do this stuff alone. We're not meant to do this alone. We're not meant to have this human experience alone. And when we have things we're trying to heal from, we're certainly not meant to go on those healing journeys alone.
Oh, absolutely. Community is so important, and also being able to share things, of course, with the community, or even just talk about it yourself and to release those things. I know that breath work has helped me a lot, and I did a
Mm,
lot of releasing, and I just felt them leave my body almost, and
yeah.
it
Yeah, I
was
don't know what your experience with breath work was. I had an amazing experience with breath work a number of years ago.
oh, really?
Uh, it was part of a healers retreat. A couple friends of mine were leading a retreat for healers. And this was
Oh,
also at a time where I was really feeling burned out. I was an oncology case manager at the time.
oh,
And I loved my work and I loved like the doctors I got to work with, just such heart-centered people that were doing a lot of good work. Loved working with my patients, but the system is just challenging to work within. And it was just hard to practice in the way that I wanted to. And that was part of what was leading to some of the burnout. But I found myself at this retreat and we did some breath work, and I had never done that before. And so I
oh.
didn't know what to expect. And oh my gosh, like you said, just a huge release. Um,
Yes, it's quite amazing. Well, I know I'm really happy that you mentioned there's so many doctors that lead with heart because of the system. It gives a bad name, unfortunately. So I'm happy that you have said this on the show because a lot of people have other ideas about that. And like you said, it's our system that
yeah.
that's really the problem.
Yeah, it's really important to separate the people from the system.
Yes.
My own healing journey with my back pain has included the regular medical system a little bit, and then a lot of alternative modalities. So it's really important to understand that our medical system is really good at certain things, and they're not so good at others. They're really especially good at emergency care. And if you break a bone or you've got an emergent thing happening, uh, or you want to rule out something bad, which was my case. So I had this back pain forever, and I did go through and I got scans done, and it did show I had a bunch of stenosis, which is a narrowing of the spinal column all throughout my lumbar spine, which felt really scary at first. But we ruled out anything other than that, anything bad. And so that, in addition to having a really critical assessment with a physical therapist who like did a physical exam on me that I swear to God, I thought he was going to break my back. And I credit him with saving my mental health back in those days because he was the one that was able to walk me through, yeah, you've got all this stuff that showed up on the scan. So what? Like, it doesn't mean that you can't be active. It doesn't mean you have to even be in pain. I know you are in pain right now, but it doesn't mean you have to be. And your best friend is movement. So move. And that was just, it was really empowering because I had gotten myself into a very disempowered state at that point. And so that's how I used the medical system. I used it to rule out the bad stuff. And then I was able to, you know, move forward and use a lot of other modalities to try to get moving again.
Yes, that's definitely a relief to edify what it's not, because that can start you with healing, just that alone and the words, and that's wonderful. What have you learned with illness and nursing, being a
Mhm.
nurse?
Well, I've gotten to do a lot of different things as a nurse over the years. I've been a nurse for 14 years, which in itself was a second or third or fourth career for me, depending on how you count. But I'd done a lot of in-home care prior to that and had experience being with people at the end of life. And that's when I first came across some hospice nurses, and I got to see them work and how comfortable they were talking about death and dying and
Yeah.
being with people. And I said, oh, I want to be able to do that. Like they impressed me a lot. Um, and I never did hospice specific work, but I had my own experiences as an inpatient nurse in the hospital, being with people at the end of life, and got to work with people who had seriously like life-limiting illnesses. But first, what I got to see in the system was people who were older, getting more ill, and spending time in the hospital, which was the last place that they wanted to spend time in. And a
Right.
lot of these folks didn't need to be spending time there, but it was just because they didn't have a different plan that they end up there. And that just drove me nuts. And I was like, why are we not talking about this more proactively? Why aren't we having goals of care conversations earlier on with folks? And there's all kinds of reasons because people are uncomfortable having those conversations. We don't want to talk about the end of life. And what I've learned, it is so liberating to talk about the end of life because once you face that and have some comfort talking about it, it frees you up to decide how do I want to live in the meantime. And a lot of those goals of care conversations with patients would end up going into that. Like, here's what's happening. I could potentially die within the next couple of years because of what's going on. Wow. Okay. And we sit with that and we talk about what the implications of that might be. And we allow the emotions. I can say more about that, but how I can say more about how we have those conversations. But once you let that move through, where it leads inevitably is okay, what are we going to do in the meantime? How do I want to live? And that's what palliative care is about. Palliative care is about how can we set you up to live your best life right now until the end. We don't know exactly when the end's going to be. So I would love all of us to have goals of care conversations now. Like, I don't anticipate this being a reality for me for a good 50 years at least. Um, but when I put some attention on it, it really brings me back to the now and into being really intentional about how I want to live my day to day, how I want to be.
Yeah, well, that's definitely a wonderful way to look at it, and it I could see where it's so freeing. So I'm really happy that you shared that. So I know there's got to be some overwhelmed times being a nurse, and there's things that may get to you, or how do you handle that? How do you deal with that?
Well, it's funny. When I first started as a nurse, everything was overwhelming. Just walking into a patient's room was overwhelming. And I certainly noticed uh, any patients that had like were having emotional reactions, which of course everyone is because they're not having their best day. They would, if they're
Right.
in the hospital or they got a diagnosis and they're coming into the oncology clinic, like they're not having their best day. So everyone's going to have their own emotional reactions to this. And when I first started, I was really uncomfortable with that. Like I found myself making small talk or like making jokes or trying to distract them, back to like all the ways that I would distract myself from my own emotions. I started doing that when I was a nurse. And what I noticed is that people would just shut down. And that just kept happening over and over. And I was like, well, that's not what I want. Like, I don't want people to be shutting down. I want people to be talking and interacting. And so it was a trial and error thing over many, many, many. I mean, the great thing about being a nurse for so long is that I got a lot of practice. I
Yeah.
had experience with a lot of different patients, a lot of different people. And I got to try this out and be like, well, that didn't work. And then I tried this out. But it really came down to just increasing my own comfort with my own emotions so that if someone else was having an emotional reaction, I was okay with it. Um, but there's things that get in our way of this is, someone having an emotional reaction about something and we just feel like we need to fix it. Like someone's just got some bad news about a scan that they had and they're crying. And for a lot of us, for those of us who don't have a lot of experience with this, our initial impulse is to be empathic, but then also we don't want to make it worse. And we think we're going to make it worse by drawing attention to it or by naming it. And we're afraid we're going to send someone down into some deep, dark hole. But the opposite is what happens. A strong emotion really will only last physiologically, like all the chemicals that get released when we have these strong emotions, they only last 90 seconds as long as we allow them to move through and we don't interrupt them or keep feeding them somehow.
Well,
So I learned to do that with patients.
well, how would you respond with some really bad news? Are you listening and let them talk to you and talk to them about it, having a conversation about it?
Yeah, the first thing, and I spent a number of years teaching clinicians how to have goals of care conversations with patients. And the first thing that we teach them to do, well, the first thing we teach them to do is just to get centered. We do some meditation, allow them to calm their own nervous system, practice calming their own nervous system. Because when our nervous systems are calm, the people we're spending time with pick up on that and it helps to calm their nervous system. And that's really helpful in these moments when I've gotten some bad news and emotions are flying. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is simply just respond to the emotion. And and there's a lot of ways to respond to the emotion. There's no right or wrong per se. There's many ways. You could simply just name the emotion. But also don't assume. This is the other thing I learned. Because when I first started learning this, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to name people's emotions. And then I was wrong half of the time. I was like, you seem really angry. They're like, I'm not angry. I'm really sad. And I was like, oh, okay. So I don't assume anymore. So what I say is, you seem really sad, or you seem upset, or I can express understanding. There's a mnemonic called nurse. You can name the emotion. You seem sad. You can offer understanding. I can understand why this is upsetting. You show respect for the person. It's like you clearly have been through a lot in your life. I appreciate how strong you are. You offer support. It's like I'm gonna be here with you. I'm right here. We're gonna help you through this.
Wow,
You're
that's
not.
yeah, go on. I just was thinking that would be so wonderful to have that.
Yeah, I mean, you can feel it now, right? With me just saying these things. It just feels good. And we weren't even talking about something specific that was happening for you. It just feels reassuring.
Yeah, well, I can visualize it. I can see that situation. And like you said, it's not a place that people really want to be. That people want to be in their life. So to have somebody, hey, I got you. I'm here for you. That's like everything.
Mhm. It is. It it and then there's a practical side to it as well. So I think there's healing that happens in that moment. When
Mhm.
you can calm your nervous system enough to really be present with somebody and then not make their emotion or reaction bad, not judge it, not make anything right, like wrong or bad about what's happening. Someone's really angry. Oh my gosh, they shouldn't be angry. It's like, yes, they should. They should be angry. Do you know why they should be angry? Because they are. That's just what's happening. You don't have to put a lot of other meaning on it. So then allowing that to be. You seem really upset. Tell me more. I had a patient once who was a real challenge for the team to work with. He was a veteran. I work at the Veterans Hospital here in
Okay.
Madison, and he was a kind of an old curmudgeon veteran who had a lot of mistrust of the medical system. Really angry person in general. It seemed. So it seemed. So our experience of him as a care team was like it was just hard to have a conversation with the guy because he was just kind of like really have angry responses. We try to get into conversation about what are we going to do about this illness that he's struggling with. It's really hard to interact with him. And so there was one day I had a little extra time and I went and sat down and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna talk to this guy. I'm gonna just try to find out what's underneath this. And I let him just vent for a little bit. And I just did some of the things that I said I was doing. I was like, well, that's understandable. I get why you'd feel upset. I understand why you don't trust everybody here, given some of the things that you're saying. That makes sense. And I just kind of let him go on for a bit. And then it calmed down. And what he ended up sharing with me at one point was how upset he was about how when his dad was at the end of life and he had an experience with his dad in the hospital and his dad ended up being on machines. He felt helpless. He felt confused. His dad seemed to be suffering and he didn't know what to do about it. And he was just really mad at the medical system for how that went. And and it also turned out that he had very specific desires about what he wanted for his own care based on that experience. Like he didn't want to have anything to do with machines at the end of life, and he didn't certainly didn't want to be in a situation where he would be uh, getting treatments that he didn't want. And that's really good stuff to know as a medical care team because you can get that put in their people's charts and try to honor those wishes. He calmed down after we had this conversation and he was able to get some of that out. We were able to have some real conversations with him and make some plans. So I just always like to remember you just never know what's going on for people. On the outside, this guy was just like hard and just angry. And what he was really doing was grieving the loss of his dad and what had happened with him when he was in the hospital.
Well, what you've been saying is really helpful because it also can just apply in life, talking with people
Mm.
as well. And that's wonderful because listening and finding out more by you just being there, it has such great effects and both can feel so good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You don't have to be in a hospital to be having an emotional reaction to things. You just have to wake up in the morning and maybe look at your phone for 2 seconds and then you've got an emotion, right? Yeah, exactly.
pretty much. Yeah, yeah. So so is there something else that you wanted to do or say or
I think I'll just name a couple more things and then I would love to lead us through a visualization because
yeah, yes,
um
I'd love that.
because a lot of us do feel alone when we're struggling with these things and unfortunately the way healthcare and the even the alternative health modalities, the unfortunate thing about how it's all set up right now is it's all disjointed and we
Yes,
can feel so isolated and alone as we're trying to navigate it, right? Like I went to my medical doctor and I was able to get this taken care of. Okay. And then I had a massage therapist, and then I've got my energy healer, and then I go to this retreat and do breath work, right? Like I've got all these disjointed things, but there was nobody that was like my case manager who was like, okay, what's all the things that you're doing and what's working and what's not? Like I had to do all that on my own. Luckily, I had some case management experience and I was able to do that, but it was a lot of work. And a lot of people struggle with that piece. It's like,
Sure.
how do I navigate? What's the best thing for me to do? So, I think I want to encourage people not to go it alone. Um, and that can be, just finding a friend who's got more experience to be able to talk this stuff through. You can find medical professionals and others that do have kind of a bigger perspective. And if you find one of those gems, like use them, have those conversations. Mm. But you may also need to, depending on what's happening for you, what state of your mental health is, how much support you might need. I mean, there's an epidemic of anxiety and loneliness happening right now. It's an epidemic. And loneliness has been shown to create worse health outcomes than smoking 15 cigarettes a day or drinking. And it needs to be addressed. And all of us have, options. There are options. There's ways to to connect. And sometimes that means hiring, like connecting with a therapist or getting a coach, that sort of thing. That can be helpful to kind of get over that hump.
Yeah,
But that's one thing I want to really encourage.
definitely. Definitely. That's wonderful. That's yeah, the when you do have chronic pain or anything, it does isolate you. You feel isolated. Uh, but to go and get in a community, get a coach, and I think you mentioned keep moving because
Mm-hmm.
I know that I've had things that have arisen. That's one thing that I never sat around. I always kept moving. And I think that's good for the entire body. So,
Yes. Yeah. Moving physically helps remind your body that you can move mentally and have flexibility in how you think. Um, so yeah, maybe what I would love to do, because we were just talking about it's important to reach out and have support. We all have support within us as well that I believe is untapped or not tapped into as much as it could be. And so this a visualization I would love to lead you through and everyone listening
sure.
helps remind us of that. So if you're listening and you're in a safe place, because this is going to be an inward journey. If you're not in a, if you're driving right now, don't do this activity. But as long as you're in a safe place and can get in a comfortable position, whether that's sitting or lying down, I invite you to get yourself into a quiet space and where you're going to feel safe and uninterrupted for the next 5 to 6 minutes. And I am going to lead through a visualization. It doesn't mean you need to see anything. Some people aren't as visual as others, and that's okay. If you're like, I don't get any visuals, that's okay. Just treat it as a contemplation. Treat it as a deep contemplation.
Okay.
And you might want to have something to write with or a journal of something like that to take some notes with afterwards.
Okay.
So get yourself situated, and I invite you to mm, think of your brain. We think of our brains as like this, like little library. We go into our brains and then we look for information and then we extract it out of our brains. What I want to invite you to do is to think of our brains as a receiver. Think of them as anyone old enough to remember television antenna. Think of them as antenna. They're receptors because that's what our brain is actually, is a large antenna that can receive information. And when we do this in community, like we're doing right now, it amplifies this ability to receive. So we're not going to use our mind to analyze. We're opening up the system to allow connection with one another and with this and with spirit. So I just want to encourage you to trust whatever comes for you. So let's settle in, Find a couple of good deep breaths, and that might take a few breaths to find those. Just take your time. Let your shoulders drop. Notice what your jaw is doing and unclench it. Allow your eyes to close if they're not. And imagine yourself walking on a path. It's a perfect temperature day. And you're walking along this path and you're feeling content. You don't have any responsibilities in this moment. And you come across a building that looks very inviting. It's got big windows. And the door's open, so you walk in. There's a lot of light pouring into this building. Feels warm, safe. And you walk down a short hallway and there's a door. And you open this door into a room. It's a calm space. And in front of you is a table. It's your table. And you're free to invite anyone you wish to join you here at this table. The beings you invite in have your very best interest at heart. They may be ancestors, guides, mentors, living or deceased. They may be animals. They may just be energy. Some may be unknown to you, and that's okay. Let them gather and look around. Sense who's arrived. Now choose one of the beings at your table and ask them gently, am I loved? And let yourself receive the answer in a feeling, an image, or a phrase. Let it settle. Now invite your higher self, this eternal part of you that's beyond identity, beyond achievement. And ask your higher self, am I loved? And receive. If it feels right, now invite in your higher power, God, the universe, spirit, whatever that is for you. And ask, am I loved? And let it land. With these beings gathered at your table, ask, what do I remember? What do I need to remember right now? What guidance do you have for me? Just listen and receive. I'll take a few more moments in this sacred space. Let anything else come through that wants to. Images, emotions, silence. There's nothing to figure out. Just be here. And when you feel ready, you can begin to return. Just gently, gently bring your attention and awareness back to the room or wherever you're at. You can wiggle your fingers and toes if you need to, and allow your eyes to open when you're ready. So I invite you to take any notes or write or draw anything that came to mind, that came through, that you want to capture from this experience. And some things you can think about, and I'll open this up to you, Maureen, and ask you if you want to share anything. But what stood out most to you? How did it feel to be at that table? What do you want to carry forward? What was your experience?
So I could definitely I saw people there, and when I asked that particular one, am I loved? It was it was a silence kind of, but then when we went up to the higher self and what I my belief, I knew I had all this light pouring, and I knew I am loved. And so I guess the takeaway for me is you don't have to do it alone. You always have
Mm,
that. You can always ask, surrender, and you'll get answers.
nice.
Yeah.
Thanks for participating in that.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you for asking. So, uh, I know there's, well, actually, this is what I want to talk about, um, a quote of yours. And I say a
Mm,
quote now because it was the topic, but I was so eager to get
mm,
into this interview
mm,
and talk to you and find out things that I forgot to say the topic, which
mm.
so the quote, and I think it's so beautiful. When I feel safe and loved, I think it's appropriate right now. I am able to learn and heal. And
Yeah,
when I read that earlier, I thought it was so profound. I think it's just beautiful. So anyway, I want to share.
yeah. Yeah, we often try to skip the first two and jump to I need to learn things. I need to go to this person. I need to read this book. And what am I missing? What am I missing? What do I need to learn? How do I heal this? How do I heal this? Like that's where our anxious brain will go, and it
Yes.
tries to do all this work over here, and we skip the first two steps. If you don't feel safe in your body, in your own emotional world, if you don't have kindness to for yourself, uh, it's hard to feel loved. And if you don't feel loved, it's hard to learn. So, and the opposite is true. When I do feel safe and when I feel loved, like you got to experience with that visualization, that's the point of that visualization, is to really bring that in. And you can repeat that, you can practice it. Everyone who assembled a group of guides at their table, you can always go back and revisit that table. You can go back and, like you said, you've got that, you have access to that now,
Yes.
and just let that love rain on you and really see how much you can take in. And that's often the challenge that I get to with clients over time. When I first start working with clients, a lot of it's just calming this nervous system. The world is overwhelming. I feel overwhelmed. I feel anxious. And that's often our work initially. But then we
Yes.
get to a point where, okay, that's calmed down. I feel safe now. Okay, let's see how much love we can let in. And when we first start letting love come in, it can feel hard. It can be hard to let it in. I can let this much in, but like more than that can feel like too much for some of us if we haven't been used to it. So there's an expansion needed and a building of tolerating love in us. And then when you do that, you naturally want to learn. You get so curious about the world.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's lovely. Well, so what are a few things that people can move? I know you've mentioned so many things and just doing this exercise, but if there's anything that you want to share that people could move towards healing.
Yeah, if I could go back and give myself advice, like here's the three things that I would tell me uh 30 years ago or 20 years ago or even 5 years ago or even yesterday for that matter. Like we learn these things and then we forget. We learn them and we forget. So it's a
Yes.
practice. All of this is a practice. It's a practice. And you get better. You get better with practice. So the first thing, don't believe your thoughts. We have between 6,000 and 60,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are fear-based. They're just
Yeah.
like our fear brain just trying to scare us, trying to keep us, it's trying to keep us safe, but it ends up scaring us. Don't believe them, question them. Look up Byron Katie and her work. Fantastic work to work with thoughts and to question them. So don't believe your thoughts. That's number one. And then that can help calm the mind a little bit. And then look at your relationship to your emotions. And most likely it could use some improving. So, how do you speak to them when they arrive? How do you speak to yourself for having the emotions? It's like, oh God, I shouldn't be feeling this right now. I shouldn't be feeling upset. I shouldn't be feeling this sad, still, whatever. Notice what your voice is inside you toward yourself or toward the emotions. And remember, there is no redeeming value in harshness. There's nothing that harshness can do, either externally or internally, that loving firmness can't do better.
Ah, yes.
So bring that loving kindness and that compassion to those conversations. That's number two. And then three, what we just did with the visualization, allow a love greater than you to come in. Notice what brings you wonder and awe in your environment, in the natural world, as you're interacting with loved ones, as you're watching a show, reading something, wherever that like little spark of wonder or awe comes in, like allow that to grow. This may come through prayer or meditation or the visualizations like we just did. Just let notice, bring attention to these experiences and let them expand you. We notice beautiful things and we see this and we just kind of skirt by it quickly often. So the practice is to slow down and bring attention to those and when you do that, they naturally expand. And that's what can help grow your capacity for love. So that's number three.
Okay, that's great. Well, also I know you have a really great free gift, so I want you to
Mm.
share it. So generous of you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm offering a free coaching session to anybody. So some folks listening to this may have had a coach in the past. Some of you may not even know what that means. And it's open to anybody who just wants to explore it. It's very casual. There's no specific agenda, and you might have something specific that you want to bring to a conversation and just have a thought partner help you think through something. Or you're going through a hard time right now and just want some support for a time in a conversation. So that's who it's for. It's for anyone wanting to explore that. So yeah, there's a link to just schedule one with me.
Yeah, and I think it's a 30-minute one-on-one. So
Mhm. That's right. Yeah, it's one-on-one, 30 minutes. Thank you. for the details.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so I think we're going to wrap it up. So I just want the audience to remember that faith and belief is part of the healing journey, and you're on one right now by just stepping into this summit. And just remember that the body is designed to heal itself with the right modalities, tools, environment, and conditions. So thank you so much. And thank you, Doug. This has been so amazing. You shared so many beautiful ways and you just got right down to everything. And I've learned so much. So thank you.
Thanks again for having me and for putting this on. You're doing such good work in the world. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Bye bye, everyone. See you tomorrow.